Hey, greetings. This is my attempt to get all of my videos on the channel called Who is Who in Hoaxology. The reason I feel this is important is because the public needs to see we are surrounded by liars and lies, and almost everything is put in front of you is a hoax or a lie. Now that's quite a statement to make, but as you can see, I have considerable number of videos that I've made to try to demonstrate this, and I'm going to record my channel in faster speed, so the voice you will hear is my voice, but it has been speeded up so that I can get more videos in 1 hour. Now I'm going to begin with this video right here. This is the end. Beautiful friend sings Jimmy Morrison, who really is Rush Limbaugh. So this is Admiral Morrison's son, the one that did the Gulf of Tonkin hoax. His son obviously got involved with Hoaxology, the CIA. Eventually Jimmy Morrison becomes Rush Limbaugh. Let's listen in.
Hey, Mr. Lightman, you gotta turn those lights way down. Yeah, I'm not kidding, you gotta turn the lights down. Oh, come on.
New update, ladies and gentlemen, inaugurated today on the EIB network. This is our euthanasia update.
Beautiful friends. This is the end. My only friend, the end. I'll never.
This will be a short piece, I'll be ready on the phone.
Again. This is the end. Oh, what are we doing? This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands. The end, no safety or surprise. The end, I'll never look into your eyes again. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free? Desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land.
Our euthanasia update, ladies and gentlemen, will chronicle all of the right to kill cases that are now pockmarking our system.
You see, the world has changed. You don't need to sell at events and galleries anymore. You can go directly to your customers, and more importantly, they can come directly to you. So how do I know that you can find your customers online? Let me give you a glimpse of what this...
What?
this is the end. Hey, the title of this video is Rip Got It Right. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Sydney.
It is always a rich and rewarding experience to take a brief break from our day-to-day demands in the struggle for freedom and human dignity and discuss the issues involved in that struggle with concerned friends of goodwill all over our nation. And certainly it is always a deep and meaningful experience to be in a worship service. And so for many reasons, I'm happy to be here today. I would like to use as a subject from which to preach this morning, remaining awake through a great revolution. And the text for the morning is found in the book of Revelation. There are two passages there that I would like to quote. It's in the 16th chapter of that book. Behold, I make all things new. Former things are passed away. I'm sure that most of you have read that arresting little story from the pen of Washington Irving, entitled Rip Van Winkle. The one thing that we usually remember about the story is that Rip Van Winkle slept 20 years. But that is another point in that little story that is almost always completely overlooked. It was a sign in the end from which Rip went up in the mountain for his long sleep. When Rip Van Winkle went up in the mountain, the sign had a picture of King George III of England. When he came down 20 years later, the sign had a picture of George Washington, the first president of the United States. And Rip Van Winkle looked up at the picture of George Washington, but in looking at the picture, he was amazed. He was completely lost. He knew not who he was. And this reveals to us that the most striking thing about the story of Rip Van Winkle is not merely that Rip slept 20 years, but that he slept through a revolution while he was peacefully snoring up in the mountain. A revolution was taking place that at points would change the course of history. And Rip knew nothing about it. He was asleep.
George Washington.
Yes, he slept.
King George III. George Washington.
Great liabilities of life.
King George III.
If at all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social
Washington.
change,
King George
yet
III.
we fail to develop
Washington Irving wrote the story.
the
Washington. Code name.
that
Washington.
the situation demands.
King George III.
They end up sleeping
Rip didn't miss anything.
through a revolution.
He didn't sleep through a
There
revolution.
should be no gainsaying of the fact
There was no revolution.
taking place in the world today. In a sense, it is a triple revolution. That is a technological revolution with the impact of automation and cybernation. Then that is a revolution in weaponry with the emergence of atomic and nuclear weapons of
No,
warfare.
they don't exist.
Then that is a human rights revolution with the freedom explosion that has taken place all over the world. Yes, we do live in a period where changes are taking place. And that is still the voice crying through the vista of time.
The only change that took place was in the perception of the colonists and the perception of those to come to think that a bunch of farmers with pitchforks, mostly 50% or more from England, rebelled against the most powerful nation on the earth and fought with pitchforks and a few musket balls and won freedom. Ha! Rip didn't miss anything. By seeing the picture of King George in the story of Rip Van Winkle, Washington Irving is telling us George Washington was just the image of King George III. That's all. That's all it was. The colonists now had an image to bow down to. That's right. They now had an idol called George Washington. They just got rid of the name King. But they didn't get rid of the face. Though the face of George Washington up in the left corner and the face of King George in the lower right corner, it's identical. And yes, thank you, Rip, you told us. Thank you, Martin. And P.S. Thank you, Sidney Portier. End of video. Will, come on down.
I came out of here and you were all applauding so nicely. I looked down, these three are applauding, and Adib, is that how you pronounce it? Adib was doing absolutely nothing. You were standing there looking at me as if, well, what?
Okay, so, one of the most famous game show hosts, Bob Barker. Now let's go to the Hollywood Presbyterian Church, where we can encounter Lloyd Ogilvie.
You think I'm going to get you up and get you spinning around in the pews, don't you? Wouldn't be a bad idea, would it? I love to watch those who help the hearing impaired. So many of the wonderful words that we use so glibly have a physical expression that captures.
Hi, are they applauding? And finally you went on so well, he went. I thank you, Adib. Thank you. Thank you. Now I want to show you the first item of forbidden advice, right? Yes, I do.
Here's what I feel and want to put into action at times. Did you know that the word for hallelujah goes like that? Oh, come on, you can't resist doing that, can you?
Bob Barker. Come on out of that pulpit robe. Come on out of using hypnotism, you master hypnotist. You don't fool me anymore. I used to wonder why a preacher like you was in Hollywood. Now I know. You are Bob Barker.
Let's try it. I can't get you up on...
Let's get everybody
spinning around,
hypnotized.
but I can get you praising the Lord. Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm. So Bob Barker, game show host, probably the most famous game show host of all time, has a joint role in life, like most of them. They will bring in lots of money, lots. Game show hosting and preacher. Mm-hmm. That's right, Bob Barker plays Lloyd Ogilvie. So I'll show you that on the picture. Give me a minute here. This is shocking. It shocked me, so it might as well shock you. Preacher Lloyd Ogilvie on your left. Bob Barker, game show host, on your right. Busted. Busted. Now, an interesting thing about Lloyd Ogilvie is that, guess what? He served as a U.S. chaplain to the Senate. And here's a resolution that was passed honoring Lloyd Ogilvie and his wife. Now, that's the references if you want to find it. Okay, at congress.gov. In the 109th Congress, 2005-2006. A resolution. Why? Because he served as chaplain. Lloyd Ogilvie is Bob Barker. Oops, sorry about that one. So they don't fool us anymore. Game show host, Bob Barker. There he is. Will also be Lloyd Ogilvie. You can hear the voice, it's the same.
Now, can you imagine Habakkuk leaping for joy, spinning around in
A little different accent, but it's still the same voice. I was shocked.
Now, why was I shocked? Well, I'll be honest with you. I did a lot of reading of Lloyd Ogilvy's books. And I thought he was very good. Now, that's why I have a channel, The Elect Deceived, Matthew 24:24. Was I deceived? Absolutely. What about you?
That channel no longer exists. I took it down voluntarily.
You deceived? Well, whether you think so or not, you are deceived, and you have been deceived. And, if I can add, we will be deceived. Matthew 24:24, that if possible, even the elect will be deceived, Jesus says. Now, how does one go from a preacher to getting the church in Hollywood Presbyterian, and then being elevated to the status of chaplain in the U.S. Senate? The Senate is phony. I know, maybe you'd like to believe that all of those are truly elected officials. They're not. They are characters, playing a role. And the one that we knew as Lloyd John Ogilvy was just Bob Barker, in costume. Doing what? Deceiving us. So there you have it. This one hit me hard, and many other ones have hit me hard too. But you know, God has given me a discernment now, and I can look at someone and I go, oh my gosh, that might be, and then I investigate, and I'm shocked to find out. Why is Lloyd Ogilvy at the Hollywood Presbyterian Church? Because Mr. Barker resided nearby doing all his filming for game shows. But he also did a lot of filming as Lloyd Ogilvy, pastor, preacher, author, speaker, and chaplain to U.S. Senate for I think 5 or 6 years. In the Senate with a resolution, recognized Lloyd Ogilvy. They are all deceivers. Senate, Congress, President, all. A-L-L. And unless you get that in your mind, you're not going to understand the Hoaxolgy system. I've had a lot of people put comments in my channels and say, I'm angry. Well, guess what? I'm a little bit angry too. Because I spent some time reading, listening to Lloyd Ogilvy. But guess what? I was deceived. So the deception is great, and I would like to spare you deception. Just go to your Holy Bible, read your Bible, ask for the Holy Spirit, let Christ in your life, let Him be the way, the truth, and the life, and watch out for phonies. Watch out for deceivers. They're everywhere. And please know that I'll do my best to show you the deceptions, but I want to do my best to tell you, just live for Jesus Christ and allow His Holy Spirit, the third person of the Trinity, to guide you and lead you in this life. Thank you for watching. End of video.
Murder. Back in 1994, I was in law school. And like the rest of America, I watched the trial gavel to gavel. Well, the smash success of the FX miniseries, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, American Crime Story, has proven once again that everyone still likes to talk about the trial of the century. Well, almost everyone. For nearly 20 years, Robert Shapiro, O.J. Simpson... Simpson's first defense attorney has remained silent until now. Thank you very much for being here. Why do you think the story still brings out so much passion?
I think because, number one, Simpson himself, great all-American hero, one of the greatest football players who ever lived. First time DNA was ever used in a trial of any significance. Very interesting.
DNA, fake. Double helix, double hoax. Jacob's ladder. See my other videos.
Lawyers on both sides, and a horrible, devastating loss to the two families.
Mr. Simpson is a wanted murder suspect, 2 counts of murder.
When O.J. Simpson was first arrested for killing his wife Nicole and her friend Ron Goldman, pretty much everyone thought he would be convicted. Not attorney Robert Shapiro. Shapiro was so famous, he's portrayed by John Travolta in the FX series, The People vs. O.J. Simpson. Shapiro now says that a lot of what you think you know about the trial is wrong. First, Shapiro says he outmaneuvered Marcia Clark by making her believe he wasn't ready.
The judge asked, Mr. Shapiro, what's your position? Your Honor, we're ready for trial.
Okay, back to the bald head. To the bald head. That's a trademark of Telly Savalas. He shaved his head for one of his first major roles, Pontius Pilate, in The Greatest Story Ever Told. And he liked to do that from that time on. It didn't mean he didn't have hair. He was starting to get some baldness on his head at the time, but he does have hair. You can see right here, even on this little area here. But the fact that Shapiro is bald right now is the trademark of Telly Savalas. See, look here. For the OJ trial, he put on a hairpiece and maybe dyed what hair he had on either side of his ears or in the back. He was not really bald completely, but he did that for all his roles. It was like a trademark. And he's telling you right now, by this bald head, that he's Telly Savalas.
Farrell, what's your position? Your Honor, we're ready for trial. Looks at Marcia Clark and says, call your first witness. And you can.
Okay, we're going to jump to something else because I can do a commercial, but we're going to jump to the picture. Now, I didn't get extremely high results because sometimes it's just that way, but enough results to definitely make the confirmation. And again, for me, the confirmation's in that bald head of Shapiro. Okay, Robert Shapiro with the bald head on the left, Telly Savalas with his trademark as an actor, a bald head on the right. Robert Shapiro on the left with a little bit of hair, Telly Savalas on the right. Shapiro on the left, Savalas on the right. Now, this gets a little further into fakeness because what happens is Shapiro will take his role as the OJ trial lawyer and use it to hoax everybody about the death of a son and then setting up a fund. They always do that. They set up a fund because they play on your compassion. Supposedly his son dies of a drug overdose. And this is that interview. You will see Shapiro, he was bald, he was really Telly Savalas and hoaxing the world.
Oh, that he was involved with alcohol, with drugs.
At that time, you know, he's 16. I suspected he was smoking grass. I suspected he was drinking, but, you know, okay, so it's...
Notice the fire burning.
He's still doing great in school. Unfortunately...
The fire burning is symbolic of the false light of Lucifer. Notice it's a golden fire. Like a golden light, a false light. And notice the reflection in the background off of that photo, off of that painting or whatever that is. If it's supposed to be a sunrise or sunset, I'm not sure, but notice it's yellow golden light too.
We let it slide too long.
A kid who grew up in a supportive environment among celebrities and privilege. Here's Brent at his bar mitzvah in Israel.
You have made me as proud a father as anybody could be. I love you. After high school, it became readily apparent.
He mentioned the name of a nation. It's pretty much what you might say is a control center.
That there was a real issue.
Brent's parents sent him to several rehab and sober living programs, and when he returned home, Brent seemed to have turned his life around.
He came back.
Okay, take a look at Telly Savalas. That's what you're seeing, is Telly Savalas. Here's Telly Savalas right there. Can you just basically see the likeness right there? And the voice is very similar. That's Telly Savalas now.
He's a guy making a living. You know, to tell you it was sexy, well, that's not my fault. But I love the rumor. I love that kind of exploitation.
What do you think made you...
Exploitation.
My sentimentality, my affection for people, my soft nature, my altogether warm, compassionate personality.
See him smiling? Because he knows it's the opposite. He played Robert Shapiro in the hoax trial of the century. And then he's telling everybody his son died and set up a fund so that people can donate.
And got into USC, was on the dean's list, was doing fantastic. Brent said, I am a drug addict. Prove to me I'm an alcoholic, that I can't, once in a while, just have some wine or a beer with the guys. And that ultimately was a downfall.
A downfall after being sober.
Did you notice another flash? A golden light? Did you notice it?
2005 for a 24-year-old with his whole life ahead of him.
He broke
10-9-9-911 code, death code.
And another one. And then for some reason, that is inexplicable,
decided to split an ecstasy, had a horrible reaction, got violently ill, began to projectile vomit. And people said, you know, he'll just sleep.
Now I want to ask you a question. If you were a father who truly lost your son to a drug overdose, could you so casually and calmly talk this way in front of cameras? Now I'm a father, I have children, and if anything happened to my children, I will tell you something. I could not talk so calmly. And if I did talk, I'd be crying. And I would hardly be able to get any words out because of the loss of my son or sons or daughters. Take a look. He's smiling, talking about the death of a son. Telly Savalas, you, Mr. Savalas, you who masquerade as Robert Shapiro, and who knows who else you've masqueraded as, you're exposed. Thank you for watching. End of video. Now I'd like to do a video on Mel Brooks, and in order for you to understand Mel Brooks, you have to realize that he plays multiple roles in life and in the movies, okay? But Mel Brooks is Mel Brooks. So we're going to go back to the Wikipedia page and we'll do a little discussion of Mel Brooks here. Mel Brooks has produced quite a few films, and recently he's been involved in some filming, but most folks don't realize that Mel Brooks is starring in the film. Now, it's a little difficult for people because Mel Brooks is pretty much a master of disguises. Yes, he's a master of disguises. So we're just going to try to take a look at the situation, and we'll see what we can see when you look at how he can be a master of disguises. All right. Now, it is funny because he tries to bring out some funny things in life, but a lot of people don't realize it's humor, and they take him quite seriously. And they have no idea that sometimes he's involved in something that they think is good for them in the film, but really it's not good at all right? I mean, it's always comedy that he's involved in, but he's versatile enough that he can go into tragedy. You know, there's two types of films or two types of plays in the Greco-Roman world, and one type of play is the comedy, and then another type of play is tragedy. But no matter how you look at it, Mel Brooks is involved in both comedy and tragedy because he loves the theater. Yes, he loves the theater. Mel Brooks loves the theater. Okay? And you just have to realize that he's versatile in theater work. And he's capable of taking on some ghoulish roles, all right, and trying to produce horror in people's minds. But ultimately, he's laughing because he likes to laugh at the stupidity of life. And yes, they do laugh, the producers of these films and the stars of these films, they do laugh and laugh and laugh that people can sit in a movie theater and watch a lot of movies and be engrossed in the movie and just kind of forget about reality. And that's what happens in movies. People get engrossed in them. Okay? They get engrossed in the movies. And they forget about reality. They forget that sometimes there are multiple roles that are played by actors in films, and they're not really aware that this is going on. Okay? They're not really aware how versatile some of these actors are and how they can play in different aspects of movies, such as they can play tragedy, right? Or they can play comedy. They can play comedy, right? But most of all, you have to realize that they're versatile. And because they're versatile, they can kind of switch roles. Sometimes they go from comedy to tragedy, all right? And people are not really aware of this when they watch the Mel Brooks films, how he can do this. Because there's been some films that I have watched, let's just call them like sanitized films, almost along the lines of what you might say, like how we call in our country that we have a White House, like a sanitized version of a film. It's clean, but nevertheless, it's a sanitized version of a film that's really meant for comedy. And some people are laughing, mainly the ones that are involved in the production of the film. Now, for example, Mel Brooks got involved in a movie called The Producers, and he originally wanted to call it something else, but the people that were in charge would not allow that. So they called it The Producers. And it takes a very serious subject, okay? A very serious subject, and turns it into comedy. And you wonder, how in the world could someone do that? How could someone be that versatile to take the films that basically are tragic, which this one was, The Producers, okay? It was tragic, but it became comedy. And that's interesting, how some of these folks can do that kind of thing. And you know what? The public is completely unaware of their versatility. Yes, people, I'm talking about versatility. Versatility, get it into your head. Now, it sounds like I'm really yelling and screaming at you, but that's okay. I'm not too worried about it. You can't really do a whole lot to me, because it's just another film, and it's just something on your computer screen right now. But I'm telling you, listen to me. They are versatile, these actors, and Mel Brooks is certainly one of them who can jump from comedy to tragedy and in and out of our lives, and we're sometimes completely unaware what they did to us at the movie theater. So when you go to the movie theater, be aware that in the movie theater, you are, in a sense, being suckered by some of these actors because they're just so versatile. And you walk out of the movie theater and you just want to do what they tell you to do, which is go out and buy some candy. But you got to watch for the candy, because the candy's not good for you. You have too much sugar ingested. It can produce some very negative results. Now, see, they do that subliminally too. I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of the subliminal seductions, but sometimes they're just downright open about it. And they're not even trying to do it subliminally when you go to the movie theater. Well, I hope you understand just exactly what I'm getting at here, that Mel Brooks, as an actor with other actors, all right, has made some contributions to this world, all right? And I'm not saying that they're always good contributions, right? To say they're good contributions is not doing the proper analysis of the film. You have to take some film courses in order to do a proper analysis. I knew someone who took a lot of film courses, and he was very educated in this department. His name was Dave, and I think his middle name was John. Well, son, I think his middle name was John. Dave Johns. Well, anyhow, he knew an awful lot about film and actors, and how oftentimes these actors come to us as if they're genuine. So I'm just going to say, when they come to you, they're genuine actors. That's right, genuine actors. Now, it's not an oxymoron, but they're genuine actors that come to you in various manners at various times, and they want you, like I said, they want you to go out and buy the candy, or the Coke, or the popcorn, and in honesty, even just beyond the movie theater, because they have an agenda to get you to do something. So just remember, when you're in the movie theater, it's just a movie theater, and that's all it is. But don't let it get to you so that you actually fall into this whole idea of purchasing things either at the candy counter in the movie theater or beyond the movie theater. Just say no. Remember that old commercial? I don't know if you remember or not. It was pretty popular. Just say no. And they meant that say no to drugs. So I'm going to end it with that. And I want to thank you for watching this. Maybe I'll try to feature some actors every now and then and give you a little breakdown on them in my synopsis and my analysis. Thank you.
So in this video, we're going to go to New York City, and we're going to take a look at the one who's called the Little Flower, and that would be none other than the great Mayor LaGuardia.
let's join this documentary and then I'll show you something of great importance.
In the meantime, no mayor in the country saw more clearly the potential of the New Deal than Fiorello LaGuardia. Pioneering the use of the airplane in government, the indefatigable mayor, who liked to be addressed by his old Army Air Corps rank of Major, was soon flying down to Washington early in the morning, returning to New York by late afternoon with the promise of new federal aid in hand. Thanks to his immense personal charm, his reputation for incorruptibility.
Now isn't that interesting? He just hops on a plane and flies down to Washington to meet with FDR. Great communication here. Let's go on.
And his close personal ties to Franklin Roosevelt. Our mayor is the most appealing man I know. He comes to Washington and tells me a sad story. The tears run down my cheeks.
Oh, the tears running down your cheeks right now? Oh, they will be. Just stay tuned here.
Tears run down his cheeks. And the first thing I know, he's wangled another $50 million out of me. Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
How about that? LaGuardia wrangled another $50 million out of FDR. Are you getting suspicious?
Fiorello LaGuardia is, like this with Franklin Roosevelt. That's the critical connection. And
he's like this. Hey, look what they're showing you. The Baal. The Baal. The Baal. The devil. Hey, they tell you things, but it passes over your head. He just told you something.
Money, billions of dollars flow into a vast series of public works programs that build things that are socially useful. They build highways, they build airports, they build hospitals, they build schools, they build colleges, they build, health centers, a vast panoply of expansion of things. Before it was over, the unlikely alliance between the patrician president.
Now that photograph is photoshopped with FDR smack in the center and LaGuardia right next to him. Hey, they have a pretty similar smile. And look, they're both got duping delight. The
diminutive populist mayor, a one man called a lowercase Franklin Roosevelt.
What? What? What did one man call LaGuardia? A lowercase Franklin Roosevelt. Hey, there's your clue. I think you know where I'm headed.
Would turn New York into a showcase for the New Deal. In the darkest hours of the Depression, Fiorello LaGuardia would have the resources he would need to turn New York into what he called a gigantic laboratory of civic reconstruction. All he needed was someone who knew how to use them. And within days of his inauguration...
Okay, so let's proceed onwards here. Now just hang in there with me while I work in my primitive photo studio. My studio is very primitive, so you have to put up with my primitive ways. No, I'm not really technologically proficient like so many of you. So what's the deal? Well, on the left is none other than Mr. LaGuardia. How about that? And guess who's on the right? Oh, you guessed it. None other than FDR on the right. LaGuardia on the left. Wow. 69%. Well, guess what? We can actually do a little better than that. Yep, a little better. We can get 75% match. So what are you saying? Well, of course, what I'm saying is the one that you know as FDR also played LaGuardia. You know, the lowercase FDR. You heard it. And it's very interesting that in the so-called New Deal, the city of man was being built. New York City. So much of federal funds went into building New York City. Why? Because LaGuardia, Mayor LaGuardia, the big hero, was really FDR. And FDR played the part of LaGuardia. So that's how he hops on a plane in the morning and goes to Washington and meets with FDR. And FDR will come out to New York City to dedicate a bridge and so forth. Why? Because they are one in the same. FDR is Mayor LaGuardia. Mayor LaGuardia is FDR. Case settled. It is done. More hoax history presented to you on this channel. And you know what? The only reason that I can uncover things like this is because I have the Holy Spirit, who is the Spirit of truth. And once you get the Holy Spirit in your life, you can discern error from truth and truth from error. I've given you truth. You've been hoaxed on basically everything. I'd like to thank you for watching. This concludes the video.
We first responded to the question, what do scientists think, by saying that they think a variety of things and this is only natural. On one hand, they hoped that this instrument would never be used in war, and therefore they hoped that we would not start out by using it. On the other hand, they hoped, or other people hoped, that it would put an end to this war, save countless lives, put an end to a butchery that had been going on for many years and had been marked by atrocities, concentration camps, murderous raids on cities, on Rotterdam, Dresden, Tokyo itself. You ask yourself, would the Japanese government as then constituted, with the bitter division between the peace party and the war party, would it have been influenced by an enormous...
So you've been listening to Mr. Robert J. Oppenheimer, J. Robert Oppenheimer. Now, I picked up this book. It was out of circulation, thank goodness. But as soon as I saw the book, I said, you know what? I think I know who that is. So I'm going to make a case for you.
And we can make life a little easier for the unfortunate ones already stricken. You've heard a lot about the 4 freedoms. We know they're worth fighting for. Well, let's add a 5th freedom. Let's fight for freedom from pain. For little Julia, for the thousands like her. Give all you can, as often as you can. It will be money spent for happiness. Thank you, Robert Young. This appeal is a part of the 1951 March of Dimes campaign.
Yes, I believe J. Robert Oppenheimer was played by none other than Robert Young.
As you know, in the case of our mystery challenger, we go to a different form of questioning. You ask questions one at a time, in turn, moving clockwise, and we begin it all with Arlene Francis.
Are you a performer in the picture business?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll do my usual for you, the picture I use, and it doesn't come up as high, but nevertheless, it doesn't stop me. Okay, on your left is the character we know as J. Robert Oppenheimer, the so-called atomic scientist that helped to develop the atomic bomb, which never existed. It's nonsense. But you'd like to believe it. Oh, I did. Please don't think that when I do these videos, somehow I was exempt from hoax history. I was not. I was fascinated by it. How an atom could be split, and then there's some type of powerful explosion. No, the only explosion that occurred was in your brain. The only thing that was split open was your skull. And they dumped nonsense into it. Because in the Greek language, the word atom means that which cannot be split. So it's double talk. It's nonsense. So J. Robert Oppenheimer, the nonsense maker, was played by, over here, Robert Young, the actor. Now, the reason that the meter doesn't come up too high, I believe, is because they've taken the cheeks of J. Robert Oppenheimer and sort of sucked them in, and I'll show you on the book what I mean. If you look on the book, you see the cheeks are kind of sucked in. So he's kind of missing a lot of the area around the cheeks to puff out his face. But if you puffed out his face more, it would match much better with the photos of Robert Young. So the whole atomic dawn is nonsense. J. Robert Oppenheimer, played by this man over here, actor Robert Young. The dates of so-called birth seem to match within a few years. The location seems to match of where Mr. Oppenheimer was and where Mr. Young was doing all his filming. He was in about 100 movies. He produced the famous television show he starred in the famous television show Father Knows Best. So he was given the TV Father of the Year award. So who's the father of the atomic dawn, atomic age? J. Robert Oppenheimer. He also did a movie called Marcus Welby, and that led to a television series. Well over 100 films, a lot of television appearances, and a lot of hoaxing, like I showed you during the polio scare, to raise money. Again, all part of the hoax live system. J. Robert Oppenheimer, played by Robert Young. And that might be another clue that actually his first name begins with J, and even the title of this book is the biography of Robert Oppenheimer. But other places you have J. period Robert Oppenheimer. So that might be another clue. His first name Robert, same nonsense, no atomic age, no atomic dawn, no atomic dawn, no atomic bomb. Anyhow, you got the point, so thank you for watching. End of video.
I thought prohibition was an unjust law, and I still do. I came to Chicago with $40 in my pocket. My son is now 12. I'm still married, and I love my wife dearly. We had to make a living. I was younger than I am now and thought I needed more. I didn't believe in prohibiting people from getting the things they wanted. I thought prohibition was an unjust law, and I still do.
Okay, so who is Al Capone? But before we answer that question, let's ask another question. How much did Al Capone weigh? Yeah, that's a good question. Get on the scales, Mr. Capone. And what will the scales come up? Well, if this information is correct, Al Capone is weighing in at approximately 250 pounds. So we're going to ask that very same question for another individual. And who might that be? Well, that would be none other than Fatty Arbuckle. That's right, Fatty Arbuckle, the big actor in the silent era who had a scandal. And because of his scandal, he was thrown out of Hollywood. Well, he didn't really need to be thrown out of Hollywood, because Fatty Arbuckle, who incidentally weighed, guess what? About 250 pounds. Isn't that something? That good old Fatty Arbuckle weighs about 250 pounds. Pretty curious, isn't it? That both Al Capone and Fatty Arbuckle weigh approximately 250 pounds. So you probably are saying, well, that's not enough. Okay, I'm with you. I'm not against you now. I've never been against you. I'm just against these liars and these hoaxers. So don't make me your enemy. Don't make me public enemy number one. Public enemy number one, Mr. Capone and Fatty Arbuckle. So you're probably still saying something like, well, that's not quite enough for me. It's good. You might be right. And I'll take that. I'll take that. You don't have to give me a 100% track record, success record, accuracy record. I don't care. I just like making videos, and I like exposing liars. So let's take a look at another thing, and that would be like an approximate time period. So what is the time period we're talking about? Well, for Fatty Arbuckle, we're looking at his birth at around 1887. And his death, supposed death, which never really happened at that time in that way, supposedly 1933. Now that's significant. The 33 is always significant, but it's going to be even more significant here when I tell you a little bit more. So there's Mr. Capone, big gangster everybody feared, or loved, by the way. Sometimes they loved him because he was sweet. And you have Capone, the character, the fictional character, being born in 1889, dying 1947. So in the hoax history, the fictional character will outlive the actor, which means basically Fatty Arbuckle didn't die in 1933. So why is it that the hoaxers wanted everybody to fear people like Al Capone? Why? And you know, the movies that were made in the 30s and 40s were a lot about gangsters or psychopaths who want to go out and shoot and kill people or come into your house and hold you hostage. But there was a great segment of movies, the gangster movies. Why? Why get everybody psyched out on gangsters? Why? Well, like I told you, 1933 is a little more significant than the so-called fake death of Fatty Arbuckle. 1933 is the year that all lawful government ceased. In the third month, on the third day, or the third third of the month, which would make it the 9th, there was the collapse of all government. Why? Because the United States of America went bankrupt. And the United States of America went bankrupt intentionally with all the war hoaxing. You can see my original video that I did, the very first one ever, called the 80-Year War Cycle. And that's on War Backwards is Raw, R-A. War Backwards is Raw, R-A. It's the very first video I made. So you can find it way back in my log of videos on War Backwards is Raw. But because of the intentional war hoaxing, the lawful U.S. government is busted, broke. And if this ever got out to the public, it would cause all kinds of commotion. And it would not allow for the hoaxers to set up and use on the people a hoax government system. And that is why we had care actors like Al Capone, Old Scarface, and a whole host of other phony mobsters. And for almost a whole generation, Americans lived in fear of mobsters. And while they were in fear of mobsters, or by the way, in praise of mobsters, no one would suspect that the real gangsters, the real mobsters, were the ones sitting in the seats of government, pretending to be lawful government officials. Hence, the Hollywood creation of gangsters. So we go back to the original. Why, who is Al Capone? None other than Fatty Arbuckle. So let's hear Al Capone speak again on this recreation. By the way, there's no, he's not a great uncle. And whoever this hoaxer is, it comes up with a book about my great uncle or my Uncle Al. That's nonsense because he was a fictional character. But anyhow, this is a recreation, supposedly, of maybe what his voice sounded like. It would have actually just simply been the voice of Fatty Arbuckle.
I came to Chicago with $40 in my pocket. My son is now 12. I'm still married and I love my wife dearly. We had to make a living. I was younger than I am now and thought I needed more. I didn't believe in prohibiting people from getting the things they wanted. I thought prohibition was an unjust law, and I still do.
Okay, so $40 in your pocket. End of video.
$40 in your pocket. Well, now you know. The gangster era was fake. And that's because the real gangsters were in seats of government. Once again, you've been watching Who's Who in Hoaxology. I'm trying to condense that channel and get it out and about. More people to see these exposures of these liars. And I'm filming this on Memorial Day, 2023. Thank you for watching. I'll have more to come. End of video.